thrived and merely survived adoption, many of whom dared to search for their biological roots. Some found long-lost family, others uncovered unexpected truths, still others found no answers at all. But all of them shared raw, unfiltered stories of resilience, identity, and self-discovery. Now, their voices come together in my new book, The Adoptee Experience. Inside the cover, you'll find what adoptees experience in their adoptive families, why so many of us feel compelled to search, and the deep emotions that drive us. How fantasies about birth parents shape our expectations before adoption reunion. The role of DNA testing, access to records, and other tools that impact adoptee searches. And the emotional roller coaster of attempting adoption reunions to reconcile the past, whether the journey brings joy, heartbreak, or something in between. The Adoptee Experience isn't just a book, it's a reflection of what it really means to be adopted. If you've ever wondered about your own identity, or you want to understand the adoptee journey, this book is for you. Please take a moment to visit whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience. Again, whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience to stay up to date on the book's progress.
People always say, oh, you're so blessed to be adopted. Oh, you're so, and you are, and that's great, but you also were relinquished. You can't be received if you hadn't been put out. And I don't want to say that in a negative way, but I think people just think of the blessing of the receiving, but they don't think about the trauma of someone letting you go.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and today you're going to meet Yvette from Memphis, Tennessee. In childhood, no one would say the word adopted, but after a tense moment in the neighborhood and a series of events, Yvette figured out the truth. In reunion, Yvette learned she was placed for adoption at an odd place in the birth order of her siblings, corroborating an unsettling suspicion she had about her parents' relationship. However, she has also met some wonderful birth family members, one of whom she said is the best thing that has ever happened to her. This is Yvette's journey. Yvette grew up with a single mother in 1973. Her mom had two older sons who were unfortunately taken from this life. One was killed in the Vietnam War. The other was killed in a car accident. Unfortunately, her older brother's father also passed away before Yvette was born. Whenever anyone asked her where her father was, Yvette would share that he died before she was born. Yvette grew up with two sisters, both older than herself. One of her adoptive sisters was the daughter of her mom's friend. Sadly, the woman passed away, so Yvette's mother took on raising her friend's daughter after the loss. Yvette's other sister was also a family friend who joined their family when the young lady was 14 years old. The sisters were 10 and 12 years older than Yvette. What I haven't clearly stated here is Yvette did not know she was adopted. I wondered then if she detected differences between herself and her family members.
My mom and I used to watch the Lawrence Welk show every single Sunday evening, and we were laying across her bed one Sunday, and I said, and I was just looking at her from head to toe. And I was about 4 years old, and I said, Mom, I know what we have that looks just alike. And she said, what? And she looked at me, it was so sweet. And I said, our toes look just alike. And she said, you know what? They sure do. And they did. But so I always looked. My mom had this golden, light brown. There was no dad. I'd never seen a picture of him. So there was nothing. My sisters were older, so at 14, I knew their family. Actually, the good friend whose home I'm at now, cousins in my second book. So it's like I knew their family. But
Mm.
my family was my mom and her mother and my aunts, her sisters. So I didn't have that piece. When looking at them, I didn't have anybody I looked like. I was always trying to search for that.
Yeah. Interesting. That's fascinating to hear you say that you were literally looking at her from head to toe and you just landed on toes
Yeah,
without anything you could come up with, huh? Really
that was
fascinating.
it. Our toe.
So, when did you tell me the story of how you discovered you were adopted? How old were you? And what was going on in your life at that time of this discovery?
Okay, about 9 years old, just being a kid, was at my friend's house, the one who I just went to visit with. Her and I were walking from a store. And being in Arkansas, you would walk through people's yards and you would say hello, hi. And there's a lady hanging out clothes on her clothesline. And she stopped us and she said, "Hey, you girl, come here." No smile, no cheery. It seemed like we were in trouble. And we had taken this path all the time. And she said, who's your mom? And I said, my mom's Barbara. And you said my mom's full name. And she said, no, who's your real mother? I said, she is my real mother. And my friend, being a year younger than me, grabbed me by the arm and said, come on, you don't have to talk to her. And she said, leave us alone. And so we're walking away. And I'm thinking in this moment, what just happened? Why is my friend talking to an adult that way? It's so disrespectful. And why do I feel like something like an attack? I felt like I did something wrong, like my whole face was hot, like I was in trouble. I still remember that day. I still remember how it felt. And we didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it. I didn't run home and tell my mom that happened. I think when a small in the community, other people could discipline you. You didn't go home and say, I didn't want to be disrespectful. I thought my friend was horrible for being so disrespectful to that lady, but I was nervous around her any other time I saw her. So
Oh,
everybody knew something about me that I didn't know. And I truly still didn't know, but I knew something was different. I knew there was a secret. There's some secret nobody's telling me.
so what did you do next then? What happens for you with this intentional reveal of your adoption status without actually saying it?
Nothing. I just kept going. I would pry, and my mom, my mom was a businesswoman, and I knew she had this file cabinet in her office at home, and I would always pry through there, and I found some records that said what my birth name was. It was an adoption paper, and it said that my birth name was Andrea Latrice Bell, and I knew their adoption happened in like Pulaski County. It's Little Rock. So I said, I'm going to just go looking through the phone book. And I'm like, oh, there's an Andre Bell. And then it kind of goes away. And then I asked a cousin that came to visit. I cornered him and my cool cousin from Chicago. And he was walking in his room and I closed the door and he was like, hey, what's up? And I said, Buzzy, was I adopted? And he was like, oh, I think you need to go play. And so later on that night, after they had packed up and left, my mom said she needed to have a talk with me. She's like, I want to talk to you in what we call the TV room. We had this room that had nothing in it but like a floor model television or like really nice couch and chair. And so that's where important conversations took place. And as we sat on the couch and she said, Yvette, you were God sent me to you when I really needed somebody special in my life. And I said, okay, but that didn't make it easier because God sent. Everybody else is born. To tell like a 12-year-old you're God sent, like, okay. That just
Did she
started kind of
actually
leaving it alone.
did she actually say you were adopted, or did she avoid the
No,
words?
nobody used those words. Nobody in my town used those words.
Really?
No one used those words. I am in the process of putting out a memoir, and the name of it is called The Girl That Barbara Got. And that's what people said. That's the girl Barbara got. That's the girl Barbara got. And I was like, you get groceries, you don't get kids.
I was just going to ask you how that word made you feel. That is exactly where I was going. You may know this in the adoption community. Some adoptive parents will say things like they celebrate Gotcha Day. I don't personally like
Oh,
that
no.
phrase. You haven't heard that one. Go
I've
back.
never heard that one.
And part of the reason I'm not a fan of that is because I say gotcha when I smash a bug or
Yeah.
when I catch somebody doing something,
I forgot.
and it doesn't feel like a loving act to
Wow.
get or got somebody. So, and I'm very sensitive to that choice of words because, as you've said, you get groceries, you get gas at the gas station, but you go obtain commodities. You don't have a child join your home. There's a difference in how you
Mm.
express that. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Can you tell me more about this conversation in the TV room? So she sits you down. She says that God sent her to you. What else do you remember about this particular conversation?
That's it. She hugged me. We said, I love you. And she said, God sent me to her when she needed someone in her life to love. She had lost her father, and then she had lost her oldest son, and then she lost her other son. So she had lost both of her biological children. So she
Wow.
had no other children. Now, she did have grandchildren, but she had no more biological children.
So
She had
she
two sons and
positively
mom.
sent you to her. Wow.
Yeah.
What did you think as you left the TV room?
That why was everybody else is born? Why was I sent? That's great, but it's not enough. But
Mhm.
still not prying, not questioning, not just asking the question, not just, it was years later that I just sat down and I asked her, did she know anything about my adoption? I just came out and said it. And she
Really?
said, yes. And she said, I think I
What
was,
year was this? How old are you and what was going on in your life that you asked at that time?
I was getting ready to go to college and I asked, and she said, all I know is the man's name that helped facilitate the adoption. I guess he worked for Department of Human Services or whatever. And she said, that's all I know. And so I looked him up and I called a number in the phone book, and his nephew answered and he said, ma'am, I'm sorry. People call here every day.
Really?
My uncle is very old, and I don't know what to tell you, but I'm sorry I can't help you.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Let's go back for a moment.
Mhm.
You have said to your mother, am I adopted? Did she confirm it at that time? Did she use the word?
She didn't use the word. I said, and I didn't ask her, am I adopted? I said, Mom, do you have any information about my adoption?
So you spoke
Because at
about
that point,
affirmative, like I'm
yeah,
not take it as you not acknowledging it. I know it. So just let's come on and
yeah,
talk.
yeah. And not that she was ever being mean. I think that I just never asked the question. I never asked. I don't know. And my mom's like, I was hers and she was mine, and that was enough.
I'm curious about how you felt in your family with this knowledge. So from 12 to going off to college, probably 17, 18, that's
Mhm.
several years to think through the documents you found, the conversation that was brought to you when you were 9 years old in this woman's yard. This
Mhm.
lead to actually walking into the room and asking her the question to tell you about your adoption. I expect that you've thought about it a lot over those years. Did you feel a dynamic change in your family for you at all?
Never, never. My family played such a good role, like a powerful role. Summers would be spent with my uncles and aunts. It's almost like she was giving me a way of saying a two-parent home. And so I was like, she was just masterful in the way she thought. And so I would
Mm.
be able to see that dynamic. And no one ever said, that's my cousin. That's my niece from down south. Or that's my niece from Arkansas. It was never like, that's that girl. I didn't feel the secrets. I didn't feel that whisper like I felt at home. Used
Absolutely.
to it. You get the
Yeah.
tough skin.
So you have spoken with her directly and she has confirmed your adoption. You've called this guy whose name you found in the phone book for the
Yeah.
adoption services, and his nephew says, my uncle's really old and people call here every single day. Tell me, I'm love to know what you thought when you realized you were just one of many people who are calling this guy about your own adoption.
I don't know how it resonated with me. I don't think it really set in as being a teenager then. I don't know. I felt a little insignificant if I look back at it now. But then I don't really think it resonated with me. I just knew that mom was so loving and it almost felt embarrassing to question it because I had so much that other people probably didn't have. And people always say, oh, you're so blessed to be adopted. Oh, and you are, and that's great. But you also were relinquished. You can't be received if you hadn't been put out. And I don't want to say that in a negative way, but I think people just think of the blessing of the receiving, but they don't think about the trauma of someone letting you go.
That's exactly what I choose to remind people is that adoption always starts from a challenging place. There's no,
Yeah.
as you've said, there's no allowing or inviting a child to join your home if the child doesn't need to leave a prior living arrangement. That's just the way
Exactly.
it is. So it's a really good point. Yvette went away to college, excited to be out of Arkansas, where she said she felt like she did not fit. She was ready to go, attending school in Atlanta, Georgia, then moving to Columbia, South Carolina, before settling in Memphis, Tennessee, where she lives today. Along the way, Yvette's adoption impacted her from time to time when she went to the doctor's office. But there was a special moment in her life where things really were brought home for Yvette.
I was pregnant with my son. That's when I think it really started to resonate with me. Like it always came up when filling out doctor's papers. But when I was about to have my son, it really like, oh my goodness, I don't have a history. I don't have a pathology to be able to bring to the table or to say that I have a history of cancer in my background. I don't know. And I think that's when it really started to hit hard.
What were you feeling as you were having your son about being an adoptee and his birth and so on?
I was feeling excited that I was finally going to have somebody that shared my DNA. I was like, you're going to be the only person in the world that I know that shares the same DNA as me.
Yeah.
And so I was so excited. And then he comes to this world and looks nothing like me. It looks, yeah, basically.
I always feel badly for women too, because you do all the work to get this
All the
person in
work.
the world, and then they come out and are like, "Bam, I look like somebody else." He's like, "Bam."
Yes. Yes. Everybody says, oh, he does. And it was only until I saw pictures of other people that I could say, oh, okay, I could see it. But there was so
Yes.
many. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, what was it like caring for this little guy who this is your first DNA relative, regardless of the fact that you guys don't necessarily look alike? How was it for you to parent and care for this dude?
It was so amazing. It was so amazing. It was just, and I never thought about, like a lot of people think about, oh, well, you were giving up. How could you have done that to him? I never even thought about it in that. I just thought about me and him and our family. I just didn't think about that someone relinquished me. My family was such, and they still have been, my adopted family have been so good to him and such a community. And my mom used to always say that, always increase your community. So I always had a huge community of people that loved me and the same for him. I just felt like they took my love. Everybody loves him so much. And now I have 3 stepchildren and another son. So my husband and I share 5 children together.
Oh, that's amazing. Really cool.
Yeah.
So what happens then for you in terms of your search? You said life happened. You went to college, you've moved around, you've got your son. I make assumptions about
Married and
further relationships and things like that. So tell me, what was the anchor point for you to decide that it was time to start a search? And what did you do?
when my adoptive mother passed away in 2015, I felt like it was time. I felt that my mom was such a strong person and I never wanted to hurt her. And I think she did something that was very kind. She took my husband. We were in Arkansas from Memphis for a weekend. It was a church anniversary or something like that, a homecoming or something. And she and my husband, she asked him to go somewhere with her. And I always know if my mom asked you to ride with her, she's probably about to ask you something, tell you something. And so she told him that I just have the non-identifying information about Yvette's adoption. I don't know anything. But I know that because the records are closed in Arkansas at that time. And I know that her mom's a secretary and her dad worked for the railroad. And that's all I know.
Mm.
And that, or I could remember at that point. And so he told me that night, and I was furious. I was furious. And he begged me to calm down. I said, I can't believe she wouldn't tell me that, but she would tell you that. And he said, Yvette, she didn't want to ever leave this world without letting you know, and maybe she couldn't tell you. So, but I appreciate her doing that. And it was helpful in my search. That was years later when I actually searched and could use that information. But yeah, that was hurtful.
I can imagine, right? You are the one person who has the question. You're the one person who deserves the answers. It's always been you and her in the relationship, yet she turned outside of the relationship of you and her to speak to somebody adjacent to you to say the things she needed to say. And it's an interesting commentary on how nervous she was about it, how challenged she was to actually have this conversation with you over the whole thing. It's really fascinating. So you said it was years before you used the information. What happened years later that you were able to take this information and do something with it?
Ancestry. I had saw the commercials and just didn't think about doing it for myself. And then it just kept eating away at me. I think because there wasn't a lot of talk about adoption or adoptees. And it's just like, I didn't hear a lot about it. And so I got the kid, and I still was like, and my husband was not he wasn't excited about me finding out, because in his mind, you have had this wonderful life. You have had an idyllic life. Like, you and your mom love each other so much. You call her like 2 and 3 times a day. I've never met a person that loves their mom the way you love your mother. And I know that, but it's something that's just a drive that people don't understand if they're not in this space, if they're not adopted. So my son told me, he said, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. So why don't you just do it? So I did it, and it came back with 2 matches that were really close. A lot of matches, but 2 in particular that were really close.
Before you get into the matches, I just want to say I so appreciate the fact that you just dropped that last piece, that you are somebody who loved your mom so much and you called her multiple times a day, and still you needed to know this other piece. And you're absolutely right. A person who is what I loosely call an uninformed outsider. They're not an adoptee. They're not an adoptive parent. They're not a parent who has relinquished a child, so they don't get it, will have their own biased opinion of what you should feel and what you should be grateful for and whether you should or should not search. And theirs is an opinion based on no experience whatsoever. And desire to talk to your mom daily, but still want to know who this other mom is. Never better exemplar than that as to people's desire to know the truth of their biology, heredity, and DNA. It's incredible. One of Yvette's matches was a niece who just wanted a DNA test as a gift, but didn't really do much research on their shared history. But the other close match reached out, had been online documenting the family's journey and posting pictures of ancestors she had found. The women connected and exchanged information. Yvette revealed that she was adopted, and the woman she had connected with provided her with a meaningful name.
The lady's name was Callie Count. And I said, Count, that name sounds so familiar. And I have this knack for remembering names. I remember your face. I know that's crazy, but I can remember names. And I called my sister and I said, Dee, Count, what's this Todd's, our next door neighbor? What's her dad named Count? And they were from like the small town in Locksburg, Arkansas. And she was like, there can't be that many of them. Call her and see. So she didn't live next door to us anymore. Her husband had since passed away. We grew up really close. She's my cousin.
Is that right?
I had lived next door to my grandmother's niece. All my grown-up life, she was like a second mother to me. I was like a big cousin. I used to babysit her kids who were my cousins.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Like, we left our doors unlocked and we walked between houses. Like, so close.
Gosh, that is wild.
Yeah, like, I didn't have to come to love her if I already loved her. She's amazing. And so she's on my father's side.
Okay.
Wow,
Then
amazing.
petty
So
is.
tell me, just take me through again. So you found connections on DNA, and then
Yeah.
what did you do? You went to the phone book. What was it? The next piece that happened?
On the connections on DNA, I sent a message to both of them.
Uh-huh.
I only got a response from the one, and one was on the mother's side, one was on the father's side. The one that was on the father's side was more my age. I don't know what it was, but I'm pretty certain we're sisters, but she does not claim that. So I don't push it.
And
I think that her father is my father, but I don't say anything. I let it go and it's okay.
that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Say more. Why
And
do you think that's the case?
I think that's the case because there, it says that there were a number of siblings and she grew up with him and he was her dad and she's younger than me. And I'm sure she doesn't want to say, yeah, your dad was my dad. But the other part of that is that when I looked at my mother's side, there's a relation. They're related. My mother and my father, the families, they're related. So that makes them related. They're cousins. So I believe,
Mother and the man you believe is your birth father are related to each other.
yeah,
And do you think that's why you were placed for adoption?
that's what I believe in my heart. Both of them are deceased. I know who she is. Don't know who he is for certain because I don't want to push it. But I'm certain, but I don't say I know. But that's what I believe in my heart because,
Mhm.
and the other connection on Ancestry was a niece. It's my oldest sister. It was her daughter. So I am in close connection with all of my mother's family. So I
Wow.
did move there.
So let me stay with your paternal side for a minute. Who
Okay.
was the one? Whose side did you connect with first, paternal or maternal? Paternal.
Paternal.
You went through a process of elimination of basically saying, well, it's not that guy and it's not that guy. You really narrowed it down, it sounds like.
I did because I looked at pictures and there's a picture of the guy and it's like looking at me as a child when my sisters saw it and they've seen me growing up. They were like, oh my goodness, like that's you. And my husband was like, oh my, everybody that saw it was like, oh my God, that's just so you. And
Mhm.
so talking to my cousin, my next door neighbor, she's like a second mom to me. She always has been. And she was like, yeah, they moved away, but they would come home once a year for back in the South, they had a lot of what would call like homecomings. So the people that used to live in the South and maybe moved to the North, the Great Migration, people would get good jobs and they would come home in once in the year and spend homecoming around Labor Day and things like that. So in her mind, maybe that's when I guess I was confused. I don't know. We're just putting things together. And then that's a frustration because nobody really seems to know. So they say.
Wow. Is she your closest genetic relation on that side?
On that side, no, the young lady that told me about her, and it's like we're sisters. So it would be her dad who was deceased or one of his brothers. He had two brothers, and she really said, oh, this one is it. He's the one. And so I called and made that phone call and talked to his wife, and he was very ill. And she said, sweetheart, he says he doesn't want to talk to you. I said, will you tell him I don't want to talk to him either? It was so ugly. It was so ugly. I probably said some more choice words and I felt so bad. And so I called her back and I apologized. I said, that is not who I am. I apologize to you. And she said, I was praying that you would call me back. This has got to be frustrating. And yeah. And so I explained to her the situation. And she actually called me and told me that my genetic makeup, she said, this runs in that family. This runs, she said, if you're not his, you still need to know.
Oh,
And I
wow.
just,
For her.
and I
That's really
thanked her. Yeah. And she's beautiful. She always tells me, don't call me my name. All my friends call me Sal. She said, so from now on, you call me Sal. She's beautiful and she's sweet. And he's since passed away.
Oh, that's too bad. Wow. So you have made the paternal connections. You have pretty much identified who the birth father is, although you are not able to confirm it with anybody and you're not willing to push it. So
Not willing to push it.
tell me about then connecting with your maternal side of the family. How did that go?
About the part of the family that knew like, okay, if that's your grandmother, then that's her cousin, and those are cousins. And they did all that. And they were like, oh, wait a minute. What did you say? So my neighbor, she got me in connection with the guy who's like their historian. And he said, wait a minute, what did you say your name was when you were born? I said, my name is Andrea. He said, remember an Andrea. But she used to live here, but she doesn't anymore. And I remember her mom, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I was 6 months. How does he remember an Andrea? So it was a Thursday night. His niece calls me and she said, we figured it out. We've been going over and over. Your mom is Thelma and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I was like, okay. And she lives where? She said, well, she was living in California, but she's dead now. And when she said that, it's like getting the news that my adopted mama died. Like, I don't know if I heard much else. I just went to bed. It was just like, I didn't think it would hit that hard just hearing those words. Yeah. But the next day we pulled it together and I called her sister. She gave me her sister's name. I called this Gloria. And she told me that God had told her that someone was going to come searching for her. And she said, and I just didn't understand that. And she said, and he said it was going to be a girl. And she said, and I think you're so I said, well, did you have a sister named Thelma? She said, I did. I said, did she have a child around 1973? She said, I believe she did. I said, well, did she have a daughter named Andrea? She said, she does. I said, she does. She said, sweetheart, I think you're my niece. And I said, I asked her about Andrea, and you said she does. She said, because there is an Andrea. She has three. She says she has two daughters. She has three children. She has Lisa, Andrea, and Jeffrey. So I find out that I'm the third. I'm not even the first. So she had Lisa, and then she had Andrea, and then I'm the second Andrea. So after she had Andrea was maybe 10 months. She found herself pregnant with me. We thought maybe she went to a birth home, like a home for unwed mothers, because she went away for a year and came back, got Lisa. Andrea's still a baby, left Andrea with her mom, and they moved to California and later got married. But she named me Andrea Latrice Bell, which was her maiden name. Her married name was something else. So there's two Andrea Latrices, and we're like a year and change apart.
That's
I
wild.
said, everybody's like, why did she do that? And I say she did that to leave me breadcrumbs. Because I want to say that. I want to think she wanted to help me find her. Because Arkansas's records were closed.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Breadcrumbs, huh? Wow. That's really interesting. Because first thing I think when I hear stuff like that is like, why would George Foreman name every single one of his kids George Foreman? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
I would name
Exactly.
it Andrea.
Yeah.
But I can see from the perspective of trying to support your search to reestablish contact with the family, that would be helpful. But I also can't help thinking that an individual would you search for your own? That's a tough one.
Well, I did have my name. I
Yeah.
found those papers that had my name. So that's how I was able to, when I talked to Gloria and I was able to give that name to the people that helped, I said, my name was Andrea. They were like, wait a minute, because it wasn't Andrea, and they were right. My sister Andrea lived in Arkansas for like 17 years. After she graduated high school, she moved to California with her mom.
Oh, that is unbelievable. So how has the reunion been on that maternal side of the family?
Amazing. Amazing. My sister Andrea and I, if I'm thinking it, she's thinking it. If I'm thinking about her, she's thinking about me. If I'm eating chicken, she's eating chicken. We are the same person. We listen to a lot of the same podcasts. We like the same music. It's just, she is the best thing that has come out of this.
Really?
She is,
That's really incredible.
she is so amazing. I just could not have been blessed with a better big sister. I love her. And
Yeah.
she has been so kind.
That's really great. Tell me about the first time you got to meet her.
The first time I got to meet Andrew, it was on kind of crazy circumstances. I needed to, there are some things, I really think that finding my biological family, I think it caused some rifts in other relationships. I think it caused a rift in my marriage, if I'm quite honest and transparent. I feel like I was giving all the time to this. And I remember coming home, fixing dinner, and going and sitting in my chair and just not talking to the kids, not talking to my husband, just trying to find as much information about my family as I could. I was so excited to talk to both of my sisters, my aunts. But I just think we were starting to grow apart. And I left and I was thinking, why am I doing things that are just this crazy? And I had a nephew that lived in San Diego. And I said, but he's older than me, my adoptive family, but we're so close. We kind of grew up like siblings. And so I said, Tony, I'm coming to California. I need to get away. So I went to California, and she lived an hour and change from San Diego, and came and picked me up, and we spent the time together. Like, it wasn't like the best of circumstances, but it was just so good. It was like finding refuge with them. And when guiding me back home, because they were like, whoa, wait a minute. You and him are so much better together than you are apart. And so my husband was so nervous when we first met them, because he didn't want me to be hurt. But he is so in love with my new family. We spent Thanksgiving with them at a big cabin with everybody and took this picture. It was amazing. It's amazing.
That
But
is really
no one really tells me about what happened, what was the situation, because I think my mom was very secretive about leaving and having me and coming back. But just to be in reunion with them is amazing. They're beautiful people.
That's really cool. Really incredible. Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask about your husband. I'm glad you raised. I am not glad for what you went through, but I'm glad that you brought him up, because one of the things I think you said at the beginning was that he was not in favor of you searching. Is that correct?
That's
And
correct.
then
At the very beginning. Yeah.
yeah, not only was he not in favor, but you went full bore with obsession to the point of ignoring everybody. So I'm sure that was very tough on him. But it sounds like he's doing much better now that you.
Loves my family, and they love him. I think they'll probably take him over me. They love him. He's a big part of everything we do. We kind of do together. And of course, he's like hovering over. So when we first met them for the first time, we went as a family, but he couldn't. And he's always during me writing my memoirs, it's always been like, so be careful. Don't say that. You don't want to hurt anybody. So he's very helping me be guarded and make smart moves and still being true to my story.
So comically, Yvette's phone died as we reached the end of our time. It's one of those technical things that just happens to us here in this modern age. When she rejoined our connection, she agreed that we had pretty much touched on everything in her story, except for this.
The one thing I think that people believe that I believe with adoptees is that you're the first one. Was your mom was 15, had a baby, your mom, especially in a small town I'm from, you're going to go on to college, you're going to give this child up so you can go on and have a life. And to find out that I was the third one, and to wonder why I was the one given away and the other ones were kept. And then you go on to get married after that, have a son, and then foster children after that. I want to make it positive and say, oh, maybe she wanted to make up for that. But it's hard. That's just hard to know that you were relinquished, but I kept my others together. And so it's kind of thing that's just hard. And that's something that I try to make peace with. I say I'm okay with it. But every now and then I just kind of sit back and think with my own children and how I could never be away. Like I tell them, you're my heart. I can't live without my heart. So,
So let's just make sure I'm clear here. First mother had 2 children.
yes.
You were the third, and you were relinquished. She
Yes.
went on to have a fourth whom she
Mm.
kept, and then
Yes.
continued with children by fostering kids in the community.
Yes. In California, I even have one of the foster kids reached out to me when he heard about me and said, "Welcome to the family. I'm your brother." Everybody's been really sweet, really supportive. And they talk about how wonderful of a person she is. And I'm not saying that she wasn't. I believe in my heart of hearts she was. Well, she's a beautiful person. But it just makes you wonder, like, wow.
So I have two questions about your relinquishment and the suspicion that you are the product of what sounds like an incestuous relationship. Does this corroborate this for you that you were number 3 out of 4 and so oddly placed out of the family? Does that sort of further affirm it for you?
It does. It
Mhm.
does. It makes me think, and I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry. You never know what people are going through or what situations they find themselves in. She was in not a great relationship, from what I understand. And things happened, and that had to be a very hard choice for her, being that she had 2 children, and you know what that bond feels like. And then to have to let go of another child, that can't be easy. So, I've never ever felt anger or anything. And then I say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't have my husband and my children. And so we're all has a way
Yeah.
of bringing things full circle. But I'm just glad that it did happen, and that I found some tools to get to try to cope with the trauma that I know that's there, that people don't really realize is there for adoptees.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. The second piece I wanted to ask you about is, and you're not the first person I've heard say that their birth mother fostered other kids. What did you think when you heard that she was fostering kids but had relinquished a child herself?
I didn't think I shared that with my sister, who quite ironically had a job training parents to be adoptive parents with the
Mm,
Department of Human Services.
very
That was her.
serious.
Yes, the sister that I grew up in the house with, who was not my biological sister, but that was her job for years. And so she was a trainee for her county, or I guess it was in the state of Arkansas. And she said that was her probably trying to make up for that, to fill that void, to fill that space. And she thought it was a beautiful thing. She was like, she was trying to recreate that. Like, I'm gonna give back since I gave a child away. Let me give back.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't even thinking necessarily recreate as much as redeem
Oh
herself
yeah, maybe
or
that's a better word.
be and redeem may have too much guilt associated with it. So I don't want to put that on her because she's not here to talk about her own story, but
Yeah, yeah.
also think my child was out there and needed somebody to do this thing that I'm doing for these children that need me.
I
So
love that. And I think that fits beautifully.
yeah, I'd like to think that was a piece of it, is recognizing that there are children in need. And at one time, she was one of those mothers who needed somebody to do that same thing, keep
Yeah.
her baby safe. And here you are. So I also
Yeah.
love that you said, I wouldn't know you if it weren't for adoption. I tell people this sometimes, that I've got friends I've known my entire life since I grew up as a kid in Columbia, Maryland. I would not know those people and everybody that I've known since if it weren't
Mhm.
for adoption. So
Exactly.
it's not that I'm necessarily saying I think I should have been adopted or that people should go out and pursue adoption. I'm just saying I do recognize the reality of that twist of fate or the decisions that led to my adoption basically being the butterfly wings that flapped and changed everything that have created the life that I do live. So I appreciate where you're coming from in terms of being thankful for the life that you do have, regardless of
Yeah.
how it started.
And I am. I truly am.
Really wonderful. Wow. Well, Yvette, I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. This was really awesome. I'm glad that you found such amazing connections to your biological family members. These are really cool stories to hear, especially about your sister. You guys are just, it sounds like so closely related. It's unbelievable. And that is so fulfilling for people to find that kind of connection. I'm glad you did.
Like outside of my children and my husband, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love her that much. She's amazing.
I love it. When is your memoir going to be called, and when do you expect it to come out?
I expect it to come out in November, and it's going to be called That's the Girl That Barbara Got.
Very good. That's the girl that Barbara got. Thank you so much, Yvette. It's wonderful to meet you. Thanks for being here. Take care. All the best. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, it's me. Yvette grew up thinking that she was the natural daughter of her mother and that her much older sister had been adopted, their mother acting as the guardian for the young ladies. But the reality was that Yvette was adopted and didn't know it, and no one would ever say it. It was so interesting to hear the juxtaposition of how much it hurt Yvette to know that she was the only child relinquished for adoption against her gratitude for the amazing mother she had, whom she spoke with daily, and the life she lived with her husband and her children as a result of adoption. This is the classic issue I always try to help folks understand about adoption. Two seemingly opposing feelings can exist and be true at the same time. I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Yvette's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really?